Welcome everybody to Natalie's cooking channel. We know the most staple meal in everybody's household is spaghetti bolognese. Now, it's quite a controversial meal regardless, because everyone has their own way of making their spaghetti bolognese, whether it's mushrooms or black beans that they put in it, or peas. Everyone's got their special addition that they add to their spaghetti bolognese. But today I'm going to show you how I make my bolognese. Pretty much similar how my mom made it, and you'll find that you pretty much make it how your parents made it. So obviously we need our beef mince. I always get the lean beef mince, one chopped onion, and then I don't use fresh garlic anymore because it actually makes me feel quite ill. So I use onion powder and garlic powder, and then we've got some mushrooms which we're going to cut up, a tin of diced tomatoes, and then I've got my mixed herbs which I use, marjoram and oregano, and then I always shave a little bit of carrots in there with some salt and pepper, and then I've got this liquids concentrated stock that I add in. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how we're going to just dice up the we're going to dice up the onion. Now, I actually always keep my onions in the fridge because it takes the burn away. And no one likes to be crying while they are chopping up onions. So top tip, put your onions in the fridge and you won't be crying your eyes out. So the trick is always to try and get your onions cut up nice and finely. No one wants to have spaghetti bolognese with big chunks of onion in there. So a lot of people like to use a fancy chopping machine where they just put the onions in there and they slam it shut and it cuts it up into nice little pieces. But I like to be a little bit hands-on and cut onions myself. So I also prefer red onions to white onions. I don't know why. I think that there's definitely a different taste. And aesthetically, I think I prefer the look of a red onion than I do to a white onion. I do know that red onions are slightly more expensive than your white onion, but yeah, it is your spaghetti bolognese, so whatever you like to do. So yeah, just always take your onion and try and, like I said, chop it up into little pieces because no one wants big chunks of onion. And that's pretty much as good as it's going to get. The next step would be to get some nice virgin olive oil. Some people don't like cooking with olive oil. You can use normal sunflower oil. Just going to put a little bit of oil here and put our pan on very low, because what we want to do is we want to cook our onions until they sort of see through. So we don't want to like fry them till they're crispy. We just want to cook them so that they go like a clear color, and it doesn't look like I put the stove on there, so let's put it on. It's a tricky thing with cooking with gas. You've got to get at the right temperature. So we're going to just put that on there. It just pop a little bit more leftover onions that was on the board. And while those onions are slowly cooking, because like I said, we don't want to burn them, I always pop in, I like my spaghetti bolognese with a little bit of a bite. I know my son sometimes can tell when I've put a bit of chili in, but I use these Willie's chili flakes. And you don't have to go crazy. just cook it in with the onions. And the nice thing is it cooks away a little bit. Put it in right at the beginning so that the chili isn't too strong. And what we're going to do now is we're going to chop some of the mushrooms while the onions are cooking away. A lot of people I know don't like mushrooms. Kids don't like mushrooms. I've got little twin boys, godchildren, and they literally pick out all the mushrooms from the spaghetti bolognese. So I try to cut them up really small so they don't see them. But yeah, they always manage to find them. So yeah, and they cook down quite a lot. So I always say a punnet of mushrooms is good. My son is never really a fan of mushrooms, but funny enough, he stopped complaining about the mushrooms in the spaghetti bolognese. I find it bulks up the spaghetti bolognese a bit because, you know, if you've just got the mince in there, it's kind of pretty sort of standard dish, isn't it? I mean, I'll be interested to know what other people put in their spaghetti bolognese. But yeah, I like to put my mushrooms in there. I've heard people that put in, I think it's kidney beans or something. Yeah, so I suppose everyone's got their secret dish. But yeah, I think mushrooms has always been mine because it's something my mom always put in hers. And funny enough, I'm not a huge fan of mushrooms. I don't often cook with mushrooms. I think the only time I use mushrooms is to make spaghetti bolognese. So yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it, how you carry on traditions through the family. And the mushrooms are so fun and quick to cut. Sometimes when the little boys come over, I get them to cut the mushrooms for me because they just easily pretty much give them a blunt knife and they can go away and cut that. So, and the nice thing about spaghetti bolognese, it's such a quick and easy dish to make. Like, everyone normally has a packet of mince in their freezer, so like last minute thing, take out some mince out the freezer. Even if you don't have the mushrooms, you can literally, you know, put it in there and make a really basic spaghetti bolognese. Everyone always has. I always have tins of chopped tomatoes in my cupboard as well. So I think that's why it's a staple dish, because everyone always has the ingredients. What we're going to do now, as you can see, they are nicely translucent. We're going to just break up the mince a little bit, because sometimes it gets a bit clumpy and then it cooks in sort of clumps. So we're going to break that up nicely. And I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to meat. I pretty much only buy my... Ooh, okay. See that what happens? You're throwing it all over. I pretty much only buy my meat at Woolworths. I just don't like the look of meat from anywhere else. And especially my chicken and my mince. You can just taste the difference. So what I do is I kind of just get the end of my spoon and I mix it in with the onions, but then I just break it up, because we don't want them cooking in clumps, because then you end up eating these big pieces of mince and you don't really want that. So let's try and break that up. Just mix it a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to add, I forgot to add it with the onions, I'm going to add my onion powder, because like I said, I don't like using fresh garlic anymore. It just sometimes has, it has a bit of a aftertaste, so then I can taste it for days after. So let's just put, and then some garlic powder. Can't go wrong with garlic powder. And what I'm going to do now is you literally just going to give it another mix, and then you're going to put the lid on and let it simmer for a couple of minutes so that all the red out of the mince is gone, and you've got yourself some brown meat. Right, so as you can see, it's gone nice and brown. You don't need to cook it fast, you just cook it slowly. And now we're going to add in some of my spices. This is your mixed herbs. This gives it that a bit of Italian flair to it. You've got to have your Italian spices, and give it a good dollop of that. And then my next is marjoram. You can actually smell the Italian coming from that bottle. And be quite lenient with, give it a mixed. It's amazing how mince cooks down, you know. So I always just give the pieces a little bit of a, because we don't want lumps. And then the last one is oregano. You just add that. And then I always usually use a beef stock cube. It just gives that extra flavor, but I didn't have any. I've only got this liquid stock, which is exactly the same beef liquid stock, and it just gives it an extra bit of a. It basically brings out the flavor in the beef. That's basically what it does. So you do that, give it another good whirl, and like any dish, you've got to have your salt and pepper, and I love my salt and pepper. Get a bit of that, bit of pepper, give it another stir, and as you can see, it's looking pretty good, but it needs a little bit of color. So what are we going to add? We're going to add our mushrooms. Okay, the mushrooms obviously I've cut out before, and we're going to mix these in and give it a good mix. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to just give it a stir. You probably end up with more food on your stove top because this pot could be a little bit bigger. Always make sure you use a non-stick pan. I promise you it makes a huge difference. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to put the lid on and let that cook for a little bit. Right, so as you can see, the mushrooms have cooked nicely, and while that was cooking I added in some chopped carrots. I normally grate the carrot in, but I had these tiny little ones. So now what you're going to do is you're going to add your peeled and diced tomatoes. A lot of people like to use a bottled spaghetti sauce. I don't think it's necessary. If you add in the right spices, you pretty much have made your own spaghetti sauce. So yeah, you can use fresh tomatoes. That's also another one. See, this dish is a little bit tight. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix this all in really well. I'm going to show you. It doesn't look like much now, but what we want to do is we want to mix it in really good, because the trick is I always try to make my spaghetti bolognese at least 2 hours before I'm going to eat it, because you want the sauce to be absorbed into the meat, into the mushrooms, into everything. And the sauce actually changes like a color. It goes like a rusty color. Then you know it's really cooked in. So what I always suggest is you give it a good mix, you put it on low simmer, and you let it simmer for even half an hour. You'll come back and you'll know that it's cooked right through, and all those flavors are all juicy. So what we're going to do is we're going to just turn it down a little bit, pick up all the pieces, and then we'll come back in a bit and you'll see how the color has actually changed. Don't stir it a bit too much, just turn down the heat, put the lid back on, and let it simmer. Right, so it's been simmering nicely. As you can see, the color's changed, and a lot of people don't like saucy spaghetti bolognese. I like a little bit of sauce with my spaghetti bolognese, but if you don't, all you need to do is just leave the lid off and turn up the temperature a little bit, and it will actually cook away some of the sauce. If you want to make more sauce, you put the lid on, and obviously it sweats and it makes more sauce. So that's an easy way to make spaghetti bolognese. If you enjoyed watching my show, please subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment.